And what kind of neighborhood was Slauson at that time? What was going on around that area when you had B-Boy Records?
Man, it was pretty. Slauson was pretty desolate. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even thinking about, this might not be good for business. You know what I mean? I was just like hype about the cheap rent. Um, Man, there was it was a crack era too. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of people just walking, walking back and forth, kind of cracked out. Um, uh, and I wasn't familiar with the neighborhood. I opened up the record shop without knowing anybody in that neighborhood, man. But eventually, like, I got to know people, and nah, I love that neighborhood, man. Like, nothing, 2 years, and I'm like this Asian dude on Slauson, and when it was nighttime, when I had to close up, all the homies had gone home by then. I'm by myself, but nothing ever happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, nothing ever happened. Like, everybody was cool. Even Rolling 60s cats that walked in, you know, everybody was cool.
So you say the area was desolate during the crack era. So when, 20 years later, this young kid named Nipsey
Yeah,
put Slauson and Crenshaw on the map.
yeah,
How'd you feel
man.
about that? Knowing that once upon
Yo,
a time you were actually on Slauson.
yeah, when Akil from Jurassic 5, he was one of the dudes that used to come in my shop on Slauson. And then, he went on to be super successful or whatever. But, me and Akil, we always chop it up about old LA days and stuff. And Akil was the one that said, yo, man, Nipsey Hussle just bought World on Wheels. I was like, what? Like, and then I started like gaining a lot of respect for this cat without even knowing any of his music. You know what I mean? So that made me curious. Oh, I'm gonna go listen to some Nipsey Hussle stuff. So I started listening to Nipsey, and I'm like, yeah, some of them songs is like, yeah, and I start playing some of the songs here. Um, when I heard about Nipsey, I felt like, man, like, he must have been a little kid. And then when I had my shop, and I wondered, I was like, man, I wonder if he ever like just noticed the graffiti outside when he was a little kid or something. You know what I mean? But man, when I heard what he was doing for that neighborhood, it's brought me a lot of joy, man. Because even though it's not my neighborhood, I spent some time there, and I got a lot of love for that neighborhood, man.
So okay, B-Boy Records shuts it down in 1990.
Yeah,
Where does Chino go from there?
I start working at a used CD shop in West LA just to get a job. You know what I mean? So
So you went from owning a record
yeah,
store
to
to
like
working.
working at a used CD store, and yeah, and I'm feeling bummed because I'm like, man, I used to have my own store. Um, One of the customers at B-Boy Records, one of the few white people that actually ventured to B-Boy Records, is Mike Nardone. Mike Nardone was doing KXLU radio. We came from beyond, and he was doing hip hop radio. And while I was working at the CD shop, uh, Rick Rubin uh, split from Def Jam in New York, came to LA, set up Def American Records, and then his hip hop guy Dan Charnes was scouting for like a hip hop person to help him, and then Mike Nardone recommended me, and ended up working at Def American. You know what I mean? So the record store shut down, but in a way it was kind of like a blessing. It was like my foot in the door in the music industry. But when I went to Dallas, I was like, fuck it, I'm from LA. Like, hey, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? So, I went back to the early days of like, okay, I'm gonna paint walls. You know what I mean? Like,
So you in Dallas is like soon in LA in '82, huh?
in a way, there was some graffiti cats already there, but they had stopped. So when I got to Dallas, there was a crew called IC, Infinity Crew, and I met one of them. And I think we kind of helped revive the whole fucking scene, man. Like, we made the newspaper. There were, yeah, we did all right with the graffiti thing in Dallas, yeah.
So you're selling weed in Dallas and doing graffiti.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens after Dallas? How did Dallas
Oh
end?
man, Dallas came to an end when I came home one night. And Dallas has this big like apartment complexes, like bungalows. So I come home one night, go to my bungalow, and there's about 50 DEA or whatever people raiding the apartment complex. And I'm thinking, fuck, are they here for me? Because by that time, I mean, not, I wasn't like super balling, but I was moving at least, you know, 5 to 10 pounds or something a week because I was selling to cats that sold. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh shit, are they here for me? They weren't there for me. They were there for somebody else next door. But that kind of made me realize, like, yo, what am I doing in my life? You know what I mean? Like, I was 29, and then I was like, I'm selling weed in fucking Dallas. You know what I mean? I can't, I gotta do something. So then the next day I start calling everybody I knew, like in the music industry, see if I could get a job again. But I wasn't trying to come back to LA. You know what I mean? I was kind of burnt out on LA, so I was like more like leaning towards New York. Started calling the homies there, and because I had made those connections working at the record company, I made connections with all the DJs across the country and all that. DJ Honda from Japan had just set up in New York.
So what years were you in New York?
I was there 96 to 2013.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Name some of those legends that you got to meet.
Oh man, I got to meet everybody from Futura 2000 to Mayor 139, who's still like a good homie. Dr. Revolt, Fat Five Freddy, yeah.
So you was there when the East Coast West Coast rap war jumped off. What was your attitude then?
Yeah.
Being from LA,
Yeah.
living in New York.
I didn't really feel it, man. I don't know if there was a real beef between East and West as far as like the hip hop fans go, because I moved to New York. As soon as I moved to New York was when Biggie got killed. You know what I mean? But I didn't feel like people talking shit about LA or California or blaming it on LA.
So the atmosphere wasn't anti-West Coast?
Not at all, man. Not at all. In fact, the opposite. I think right around that time was like when Harlem dudes were like starting to be Bloods, and like I started hearing about like LA gangs in New York, and it kind of bugged me out. I was like, yo, like hip hop, supposedly got us out of that, and you fools are like trying to start that shit over here. I was in Harlem at the African parade with Akil from Jurassic 5. He was visiting at the time, and I was telling Akil, like, yo, man, I got Bloods here now. He's like, what, word? And like a second later, we see like a mob of 100 dudes wearing red and rags and shit. And they still had like the old English letter iron-ons. I'm like, where you get those at? Like, I was like, we can't even get those anymore in LA, man. Like, but yeah, they were dressed up like LA in '81 or some shit. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we're in New York from '96 to 2013.
Oh, from 96 to 2000.
That's what he's in there. He's in there from 96 to 2013. Damn, that's what? 17 years?
16, 17 years, yeah.
Shit, tell us about that. What the hell are you doing out there all this time?
Man, I think, I had little random jobs. I worked for Fat Beats, Fat Beats Distribution. I got to do some artwork for them. I did like little random shit. Like, I put out a record with this cat named Shabazz the Disciple. It was like a Wu-Tang kind of offshoot, him and Lord Jamar. So we put out a record in '97, summer of '97. So I was always trying to do shit that never really popped, you know what I mean? And then what really helped me pay my rent was a group called Executioners. My partner was managing Common, the Beatnuts, and then there was a DJ crew, legendary in New York, called the X-Men, and they formed, and they wanted to start recording, and they came to my partner Peter Kang and said, hey man, we're gonna form a group, blah blah blah. Peter said, yo, man, you want to help me with this group? I was like, cool. He started sending me on the road with him. So I had about a 9-year long run just touring with them dudes. You know what I mean? Like,
it sounds like you were deep into the whole underground New York scene.
yeah.
So look, I'm paying attention to the years in my head. You was out there during 9/11.
Oh, man, I saw that shit from my rooftop.
Tell us
9/11, man, yeah.
You saw the aftermath, or you saw the?
I saw the
second
buildings collapse. I saw the buildings collapse, and right before they collapsed, I said, "Oh, they better put that shit out. It looks like it's gonna collapse." And boom, shit collapsed. Yeah, my homie from LA called me. He's like, "Yo, man, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. You should go up on your roof and go look." I'm like, "What?" I went up on the roof. I'm like, "What the fuck?" So I went downstairs to get my camera. And then while I'm getting my camera, I turn on the TV and I see the second plane crash on the TV screen. I'm like, what the fuck? I ran up to my roof with the camera. Man, I got like time lapse pictures of the buildings collapsing. You know what I mean? It was a weird day, man. It was because everybody was on the rooftops and we're all looking at each other like just with this blank faces, like what the fuck's happening? You know, like we just witnessed 3,000 people die. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was a weird feeling. I still think about that day, and it's a weird, surreal kind of feeling, man. Yeah.
So, your last day in New York, what's that about? And why did you leave?
I didn't really have a last day in New York. I was living in New York, and I came to LA. Didn't have a job, trying to figure shit out, and then my sister, again, offers me an opportunity to do something. She's like, yeah, I have a friend whose bar is going out of business, and if you want, you could take over the space. It's a dope space, and you always wanted to have a bar, blah blah blah. So I came to look at it, and I was like, yeah, this is dope. And with her help, I said, yeah, I'm gonna go for it and open a bar restaurant in LA.
Where are we at right now?
Koreatown.
We did a full circle.
Yeah, Koreatown, LA. Like I'm just, I don't know, a half a mile from where I grew up.
Started in Koreatown.
Yeah,
did a
came
world
back.
tour.
Yeah, and came back to Koreatown. I would say in the early '80s, it was still like a gang clash area. You know what I mean? Like a lot of different Temple Street, 18th Street, Planton. Even the Filipino gangs were here. You know what I mean? Satanas, Taboos. It was just like a gang clash.
Big old gumbo.
Yeah, but I would say by the mid '80s, after MS started, Mara Salvatrucha started just a few blocks away. When they started and their beef with 18 started, this became more like a 18 versus MS neighborhood. Yeah.
Why does 18 beef with everybody?
I have no idea, man. Like, I have no idea, man. Like, I think my guess is that maybe a lot of people beef with them just because it's such a big gang. You know what I'm saying? Like, you either want to join them or you just want to hate them. You know what I mean? I think that's maybe one of the things it is. You know what I mean? And also, I think 18 was one of those gangs that didn't have that many rules. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have to be from the neighborhood and grow up with them and get jumped in and the whole thing. 18 was like more like open doors. Like, you wanna be down, just be down. That kind of thing.
Didn't even matter what race.
Didn't matter what race, man. I met an Italian dude that moved here from when I was at Fairfax. An Italian dude that moved here from New York, and he just loved to fight. And he was like, "Man, I want to join 18th Street." I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And then I saw him, I think about a year later, and that fool went and joined all on his own. You know what I mean? Like,
let me rewind back to your high school years when you're pretty much with the 18th Streets. Who were their rivals back then? They didn't have citywide rivalry like they do now. Who was their main little rivals back then?
well, Planton was always one of them. Um, Temple Street was always another one, and these were just the ones that are like local. You know what I mean, in the neighborhood. But it all depends, like West Adams cats had beef with like Culver City,
Oh, there was people in Culver City back
Yeah,
then.
there would be from Culver City. Um, yeah, but you know what? Like I said, man, I was a little kid, so I didn't really know too much of the hood politics and why, the older cats were fighting those guys or whatever. I only know like my level, you know. Yeah, but
So look, downstairs you was telling us you had an F-13 girlfriend. How did that even happen back then?
well, I had a homie that was kind of 18th Street, uh, affiliated, but he moved. He moved. His family had to move, so they moved to Florencia neighborhood. So he would call me, and back then you had the party line where you could click someone into the phone call. So he put this girl on the phone, and it's like, yeah, this is my friend Letty or whatever, and it turned out she's from F-13. You know what I mean? And I don't think she herself was like really, really into it. It was like her family, and she had some pictures, with her clothes on, and she called herself La Pequeña, but I don't think she was like a real gangbanger. You know what I mean? And neither was I. Neither was I. So I was like, fuck it. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna come see you, and I took the bus, to her neighborhood, and this was what 83. Yeah, this was 83 when I would catch the bus to her neighborhood.
Next thing you know, you're in teenagers.
Exactly. Yeah, I would take the western bus to Slauson and Slauson to Central. And from Central, I would walk to Central in 59.
So you're a true LA kid because every true LA kid rides the RTD.
RTD, man, and you sit in the back of the bus. Back of the bus.
Any incidences riding the RTD bus across the city? Did you ever bump into any enemies or any issues?
Nah. Like, man, I was like, I claimed the gang just because those were my friends. But I wasn't like a real gangster to where like someone wanted to hurt me or I didn't really hate any. You know what I'm saying?
Like the way you dress could get
Yeah,
you caught up.
exactly. But in that era, for a while I'd be like khaki down with my mom. You know what I'm saying? Like we go to downtown and people look at me, but I think it was like like there was more respect between neighborhoods back then. You know what I mean? They'd be like, oh, that fool's with his mom. Let's leave him alone or whatever. I don't even hear people say stall him out anymore. Stall him out was like a common term because it was always the OG dude and the young dude start fucking with somebody like, yo, stall him out. He ain't doing shit. You know what I mean? And so I was like one of those dudes that was always stalled out. Like I was.
Just go hard or go home.
I wasn't doing shit. You know what I mean? So no, I'd be on the RTD, man, and nah, never. I seen other fools fucking fight each other on the bus, but nobody ever said anything to me. Nobody even called me like a racial name. You know what I mean? Like, nah, people was cool. Like I don't have any bad experiences, man.
Like you said earlier, you wouldn't get killed for that back then.
Nah, you wouldn't get killed for that back then, dude.
So
You might get beat up, or chased out, whatever, but nah.
I'm curious about Wolfie from 18.
Wolf, yeah.
What happened to Wolf?
He passed away, man. I didn't know till later. Like I met somebody that was the sisters with one of the OG dudes, and then she's the one that told me, yeah, like there was another old homeboy named Psycho, and he had passed away from like a drug overdose or something like that.
Are these all Queen
Anne
Park?
Queen Anne.
18?
Yeah,
So
Queen Anne Park.
Wolf was Queen Anne too.
Yeah, Wolf was Queen Anne. And then what I heard is that that was his boy, and he was so hurt by it that he passed away not too long after that, and then they buried him right next to Psycho.
So look, I'm thinking about Queen Anne's Park. So this was pops in my brain right now. When you was at Queen Anne's Park, were the Bible Crips over there back then?
Bible Crips? No, I don't think so. I think it was schoolyards back then.
It was schoolyards?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Are you familiar with Bible Crips, or is this something new?
Nah, I can't say I'm familiar. Nah.
So at a certain point in time, you kind of like lost contact with a lot of the 18s that you roamed around with?
Yeah. I lost contact with a lot of them, and I was, like I said, I wasn't that deep into it to where like they called on me for things.
Right.
It was the opposite. Yeah, they told me, nah, Chino, you stay home. Like we got this. You know what I mean? Like,
well, shit, it's crazy now because we're back in the Koreatown and we're back by the 18s. So you did a real full circle, buddy.
Yeah, but I don't know. For me, that whole gang culture is LA. You know what I mean? I don't like to divide LA into like separate sets like that. You know what I mean? I think we all grew up with the same experiences. And
so listen, the restaurant. What kind of food do you sell here?
this restaurant, well, my culture is Korean and Colombian. You know what I mean? Korean born and raised in Colombia, so that's my two favorite foods growing up. So the menu here is kind of like a mashup of the two. You know what I mean? I don't know how to cook, but I know how to eat, and I just tell the chefs like, yo, this is what I'm thinking of. Can you guys make it work? And so far,
so the chefs don't come up with it. It's your brainchild. Like, look, this is what
a little bit of both. No, the chefs definitely bring up things on their own. Yeah.